Hey everybody, it's Triple L, and now let's talk finally Hero Academia episode 42, or rather season 3 episode, episode 4? I think it's episode 4. I hope it's episode 4. Anyway, episode 42 for sure. Anyway, yeah, guys, hey, this video is coming up late, but glad I'm finally doing it. I just sat down to watch the episode. I regret that I couldn't be part of the hype train when it came out on Saturday. But oh well, things happen. Let's just get into it. So, like always, this is going to be the differences between the manga and the anime. And ultimately, when you're looking at it, it's a very nitpicky type thing. This episode in particular, I think, has the least amount of changes overall. Because other episodes added material that was critical or gave some new little details, or maybe they did things a little bit differently. Instead, what I think this episode packs more is just the faithfulness to the original material. Like when you look at some of those manga panels and you look at the anime episode, some of the scenes are like pretty one-to-one, and it's pretty cool to see that kind of translation across mediums. So whenever I saw it, it was, okay, this is like pretty cool. Like, you gotta applaud how close they got things in this episode. So we're gonna go through the changes very quickly, and then we're gonna go off into very small impressions. I'm gonna also explain something about the 1,000,000%, because the 1,000,000% has a second story to it. It was something that was given by the author, so stick around for that after we go through the changes. So let's just get into it. So overall for changes, we have some omissions of certain panels and some inclusions of new little scenes, and then we also have the majority of the changes, I think, happening more often with the fight scenes. The fight scenes are made more dynamic, or maybe they're expanded by a few more hits. Those were, like, I think the most prevalent changes technically when you look at what kind of changes they were making. In regards to fight scenes though, like, that's gonna happen. Anything that makes it look better on screen, obviously, it has to happen. And specifically when you look at the Izuku versus Muscular fight, that had a few more changes because they had to make the impact bigger. So, you know, not a big deal. Aside from the Muscular scene, Magne versus Tiger, that scene got extended by a few more hits, and it was pretty cool to actually follow it along. So I was really into it. There was an instance of one panel being changed as well for the Muscular scene. Like, this is a scene that we got in the anime, and this is the scene that we got in the manga. The lead up to the scenes are different, right? Here you see Izuku's eyes flashing. Here you see we're leading in with Izuku's shoe. I think I like the shoe better. I like this little sequence better because there's more of Izuku's body going in there, and just the staging of this particular panel is pretty cool. What they did for the anime, ultimately, when you look at it, it's probably just an issue of how easily could they make it work. Because when you look at the way that Izuku's catching Koda, it looks like he came in from the side, whereas in the panel itself, it looks like he's going straight for Koda. And actually, when I say that, I mean, like, look at this panel, right? Like, he's right in between the two of them. He's already to the right of Muscular. So when you look at this panel and you compare what happened right after, I don't think they could conjigure it enough to make it work there. But that's a very small thing. This is gonna be the scene that I'm leaving up to you guys. What do you think? Which one do you like more? The eye intro or the foot intro? That's pretty much what you're picking. It's either you like eyes or you like feet. That scene's the what do you prefer in your anime kind of thing. Moving away from the fight and going into like the more regular things, you know, again, changes happen just to make certain scenes flow better. Like, here's a scene of Ojiro. This is very near at the beginning of the episode where he's pointing out where he's telling his line versus the scene in the manga. Because Ojiro's already in the same shot, they can just use him there instead of having a whole panel shift. Not a very big deal. But then other big differences here, when we had Tetsu talking about, or going on his little spiel, we had a cut into Mustard in this panel. We didn't get that in this episode. An artistic choice for sure. Another little detail that we got was Ragdoll's situation. In the anime, we see that this station is covered in blood. In the original manga, we just kind of cut into Magne's face, and we never got to see this station. Our first indication of Ragdoll's condition, it comes a few chapters later with the witness being Momo. So already there's a bit of a change again. Anime viewers are getting some little bits of information an episode or two earlier than what the manga equivalent readers got. Not a big deal. But overall, those are the biggest differences that I found in this episode. So guys, let me know if you found any other major differences. But this is it. it was otherwise a very faithful episode. And what's really interesting about this one was that it covered 3 chapters of material. We went through chapters 74, 75, and 76. Now this makes sense because one of those chapters was very fight heavy, and usually with fights things can go by very quickly, so it is unexpected, like when it comes to like just the basic predictions of 2 chapters for every episode. But when you have situations like this, all it means is that we're probably going to be ending off around chapter 116, and I'm just kind of guessing what number it is. I'm thinking we're ending in the ballpark of chapter 116, where we're at chapter 76 right now. So that's pretty cool for the anime only viewers. Like, you're gonna be seeing a lot, and that's actually pretty cool for season 4, because season 4 is gonna be, oh man, season 4 is gonna be an overhaul of a time. Anyway, let's go into talking about the 1,000,000%. So initially in the podcast that we have on the channel, I was going to make a much bigger deal about this, but life happened, so I couldn't do it. But okay, guys, the 1,000,000% is a really, it was a funny little deal that happened with the Hero Academia manga, and it was funnier because the author got mail about what exactly happened with the 1,000,000%. So I personally find that hilarious, and we're going to look at his message, what he himself said to explain the 1,000,000%. So here's the page that he had. I've received reactions from both countless fan letters and by my friends and manga alike that they didn't get the 1,000,000% thing at all. I'm honestly really sorry it ended up being so opaque. Of course he wasn't actually putting out 1,000,000%. It was merely Izuku's emotional battle cry to psych himself up. Think of it as the abnormal amount of strength people can summon in a crisis. And so we've come to the last info corner in the volume, blah 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 blah, fun to read. Alright, so when it comes to anime and manga, fans tend to take things a little bit too seriously. It happens very often. It's recently happened in the 7 Deadly Sins manga when one of the characters suddenly got super overpowered, but anime fans, and the ones that are more vocal about it, tend to be pretty trigger happy when it comes to like asking about things. In the case of the 1,000,000%, I think a lot of readers could have seen that that was an over exaggeration of what was happening. But because of the precedent set by anime and manga in general, where people take everything that is said to be true, it caused a bit of concern. Now, if I was to go into this and explain this to you guys without using the author's explanation initially, I would have told you, well, you know, we had clues in the episode. Izuku said his first attack was using All Might's strength. Okay, that's pretty cool, but that also meant it didn't factor in Izuku's own strength. When you see that the bits of the lights connecting between all the one for all users, you can rationalize it as, hey, this is Izuku adding his own strength on top of All Might's strength. So you could kind of try and justify it as to why Izuku was stronger for that last little bit with Muscular. And then I would have also like brought up, hey, adrenaline rush. We know what people can do with an adrenaline rush. Adrenaline rush is when your body activates it, you're going to be able to do some pretty incredible things, but you're going to rip apart your muscles. But that strength does make a difference in life or death situations. So you could have applied adrenaline rush here. It would have opened up an interesting discussion of whether or not one for all ever triggers adrenaline rushes as part of its quirk mechanic by nature. But seeing this situation, we could say no. The quirk mechanic probably doesn't take into account adrenaline rush based strength. But now that Izuku's experienced it, you could also make the argument that most likely One for All's, man, I'm gonna keep messing them up. One for All's stockpile has increased to include Izuku's ability, or Izuku's adrenaline rush based strength. And finally, when you look back to the author's explanation, when he's talking about the abnormal amount of strength people can summon in a crisis, he's talking about the adrenaline rush. Right there is the easiest explanation you can get for the 1,000,000%. It's not 1,000,000%, it's Izuku really going out all of his way. He's getting that extra boost from an adrenaline rush, and you could also rationalize he's adding on his stockpile to what he said earlier was All Might's strength. And you know, truthfully, the strength of another person being added on to the strength of 8, it could make a bit of a difference if both opponents are already evenly matched at the strength of 8. Cool stuff, right? Anyway, this was an interesting case of an author actually coming out and explaining the craziness that happened in his manga, so I appreciate it all the way through. Is that explanation good enough for you? The combination of an adrenaline rush and Izuku's own strength being added to the stockpile or to the punch? Let me know down below. Going into general impressions very quickly, this episode boasted a few interesting lines that I think make conversation a bit more interesting. For instance, in this episode we had Bakugo asking who was in front of them, and I think this is an issue of the voice acting, but the voice acting really made it seem like Bakugo was concerned, and that's cool. It's cool to see whenever Bakugo actually does care about other people. And so I like the one little scene we got with him, I thought was really good. I really enjoyed that scene, even though it was so short. So I want to like congratulate the anime on that really good point. I thought it was really good, and we got to see Moonfish, and the voice acting for the villains so far, I'm very much enjoying it. Like Spinner's voice acting, I love it. On the note of Spinner's also like perpetuating the Stain methodology, or like Stain's words, and like again, this is one of those points where you can see how flimsy some of the rationales in like one of the lines was something like, what's a hero doing trying to be happy like a regular person? And it's like you can see where that line's coming from. That line's coming from the ideal of a hero, like what people imagine a hero to be versus what a hero can be practically. I think that line is, it's a very, you know, it's kind of hard to describe. It's kind of hard to describe what kind of mindset the person who's saying that is in. I think when I think about like what it could be similar to, it's like it's a similar mindset to when people on YouTube, like, and let's use YouTube as an example, when people believe that they are owed something, like from a particular YouTuber. I know like back with Angry Joe and like all his fiascos, like people felt that they deserved the Angry Joe reviews, and it's an interesting kind of mentality that you are owed something by the person who is putting themselves out there. Like at the end of the day, I think there is something to be said about wanting the ideal of a hero, but I think it's also very irresponsible to not look at the world that you live in and not try and actually fit an ideal into the way the world works. So I'm thinking about this more because I'm working on a Stain video, and it's just interesting to see like the rationales. But moments like this, I think this is both a very idealistic and a very naive mentality to have, because like let's think about it. If we change the term from hero to quirk service worker, or service worker allowed to use a quirk, what would happen? What changes exactly? The names changes, but maybe the stigma about being a hero changes, because like now you're talking about someone who can work in disaster relief and use quirks. Because remember, heroes can do that. Heroes can go to mountains, and they can go to landslide areas or earthquake disaster zones, and they can use their quirks to help people out, right? Is that not heroic? That's also heroism. But if you call it quirk service worker, would people like Stain be put down a little bit? Would they like back off a little bit? Because if there are problems coming in with what a hero should stand for, switching titles around, like you can kind of hear how ridiculous this line is, because this is how it would sound once you put in quirk service worker in there. What's a quirk service worker doing trying to be happy like a regular person? Right? Like there is a bit of an effect there. Hero has a certain place in people's minds, and your mind is making that association to a hero. But when you use like another term, the association doesn't kick in as quickly. I think this is just a common heuristic in people's minds, and it's an issue of association. And we know that people in particular are very susceptible to interacting with material differently when it's worded slightly differently. That's why when I'm reading lines like this, I always tell myself, switch the term and it sounds much more unreasonable. Like again, what's a firefighter doing trying to have a happy life like a regular person? What's a doctor doing trying to have a happy life like a regular person? And we know that's effectively what heroes are. It's just the only difference is they get to use their special talent to help people, and they are licensed to do it. That's the big distinction here, man. So guys, you know, that's a bit of a taster of what I'm thinking for like future videos, but let me know down below if you have any kind of thoughts about that. Anyway, I'm gonna end it there. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.